Pack your desk. You're done here. Security will escort you out. After 17 years building their entire infrastructure, they gave me 20 minutes. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I smiled, gathered my things, and left quietly. 7 days later, at 4:47 a.m., the CEO called me in a panic. Their entire company was about to collapse, and I was the only one who could stop it. But this time I had conditions. Introduction. This is the story of how a 34-year-old venture capital golden boy thought he could erase the woman who built his kingdom. How a board of Ivy League MBAs with zero operational experience tried to gaslight a senior architect into walking away from everything she created. And how one overlooked clause, combined with 17 years of meticulous planning, turned a forced termination into the most expensive mistake in their company's history. Let me take you back to March 2025, when I walked out of that building for the last time, carrying nothing but my laptop bag and a decade of documentation they didn't know existed. They thought they were cutting dead weight, an expensive woman who'd become difficult. What they actually did was detonate a financial bomb they'd been sitting on for years, and I was the only one holding the defusal codes. Before I tell you how it all unraveled, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my stories. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story reaches. They wanted me gone. They got their wish. But what came next? That's when they learned the difference between building something and merely inheriting it. I was employee number 7. September 2008. The world economy was collapsing, and I was a 26-year-old woman with a computer science degree, $73,000 in student debt, and a chip on my shoulder from every professor who'd assumed I was in the wrong classroom. TechCorp wasn't called TechCorp then. It was 4 Stanford dropouts in a Palo Alto garage with a revolutionary idea for enterprise security and absolutely no clue how to build it. That's where I came in. For the first 3 years, I was the entire infrastructure team. Every line of security code, every encryption protocol, every authentication system. I built it from absolute zero while the founders pitched investors and appeared on panels talking about disruption. I didn't mind. I loved the work. And I was tired of proving myself in meetings. Here the code spoke for itself. By 2012, we had our first major client, a Fortune 500 financial services company. By 2015, we'd secured contracts with 11 of the top 20 banks in America. By 2018, TechCorp employed 340 people across 3 offices. I became chief security architect at 31. Not because of politics or networking, because I designed every system holding the company together. My son was born the same week we closed our Series C funding. I missed the first 3 days. I was in Frankfurt, fixing a critical breach for a client who represented $4.2 million in annual revenue. My husband understood. Mostly. 17 years of 80-hour weeks. 17 years of canceled school plays, missed soccer games, forgotten anniversaries. My kids grew up with a mother who was physically present but mentally always somewhere else. Inside systems, solving problems, building infrastructure. I sacrificed everything. And they knew it. Blake Morrison arrived in May 2024 like a conquering hero. The venture capital firm, Pinnacle Partners, had quietly been buying shares for 18 months. By the time anyone noticed, they owned 52% of TechCorp. The original founders, now in their early 40s and exhausted, didn't fight it. They took their money and board seats, relieved someone else would handle operations. Blake was Pinnacle's golden child. Stanford MBA, 2 years at McKinsey, 4 years as VP of strategy at a different tech company, one that had gone public, though Blake left 6 months before it did. He was 34, handsome in that generic startup founder way, and spoke fluent corporate buzzword with the confidence of someone who'd never actually built anything. His first all-hands meeting was a masterpiece of empty promises. I'm here to honor TechCorp's incredible legacy while positioning us for exponential growth, he announced, pacing the stage like a TED speaker. The team that brought us here, people like Maria, they're the foundation. But foundations need fresh architecture to reach new heights. Everyone applauded. I sat in the back watching. I'd seen this exact play before. In 2016, a client company went through an identical transition. 6 months later, everyone over 40, especially the women, was gone. 12 months later, the company collapsed because nobody understood the legacy systems. After the meeting, Blake found me. Firm handshake. Practiced eye contact. Maria, I've heard incredible things. Looking forward to learning from you. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I smiled back. Welcome to TechCorp, Blake. I knew exactly what was coming. I'd been the only woman in too many rooms not to recognize the pattern. It started subtly. June 2024. I wasn't invited to a strategy meeting I'd attended for 11 consecutive years. Blake's assistant apologized. Scheduling conflict, we'll catch you up later. They didn't. July 2024. My team of 12 senior engineers was reorganized under a new VP of engineering. 31 years old, hired from outside, confidently mediocre. In the announcement email, Blake praised bringing fresh perspectives to legacy challenges. Legacy. That word became a weapon. And when they said it, they were really saying old, expensive, female, difficult. August 2024. During a board presentation I'd spent 3 weeks preparing, Blake interrupted me 6 times. Maria, I think what you're trying to say is... Then he'd rephrase my exact point using different buzzwords. Board members, all men, nodded appreciatively at him. One actually said, "Thanks for clarifying, Blake." September 2024. My direct reports started getting pulled into meetings I wasn't invited to. Blake was asking them questions about systems I designed, framing them as though I'd created unnecessary complexity. Is there a reason Maria built it this way? Seems overly complicated. When I raised concerns in writing, HR scheduled a meeting about my communication style. October 2024. The new VP reassigned my 2 most senior engineers, both women, to different projects without consulting me. When I asked about it, he said, "Blake thinks we need to empower the next generation of leadership." Translation: younger men. November 2024. Blake began publicly questioning my approaches in meetings. That's how we did things 5 years ago, Maria. Industries moved on. He'd gesture vaguely at nothing, and younger employees, mostly male, would nod knowingly. When I pushed back with data, I was being defensive. I documented everything. Every email. Every meeting. Every casual comment. Every interruption. My daughter asked why I was suddenly working later than usual. "Just being thorough, sweetie," I said. I didn't tell her I was preparing for war. March 14, 2025. Friday, 10 a.m. Blake's assistant sent a meeting invitation. Quick sync Blake's office. Attendees: Blake Morrison, Jennifer Huang, CFO, David Porter, Corporate Counsel, and Melissa Torres, HR Director. I'd been expecting this for months. I arrived exactly on time. They were already seated, Blake behind his desk, the others forming a semicircle. The only empty chair faced all of them. Classic intimidation staging. "Maria, thanks for coming," Blake started. No smile. "I'll be direct. The company is moving in a new direction, and frankly, your approach doesn't align with where we're heading." Jennifer jumped in. "The board has expressed concerns about cost structure. Senior salaries are preventing us from making key investments." I was the highest paid woman in the company. They'd never said that about male executives making twice my salary. "We think it's time for you to pursue other opportunities," Blake continued. "We're prepared to offer a generous severance package, $140,000, plus 3 months of continued health insurance." I did the math instantly. 17 years of service. Equity they weren't mentioning. Intellectual property contributions they were ignoring. They were offering roughly 8 months of my base salary for nearly 2 decades of building their entire foundation. David slid a document across the desk. "This is a standard separation agreement. If you sign today, the severance processes immediately. If you don't," he paused meaningfully, "we'll have to proceed with termination for performance issues." Melissa added softly, as though she were doing me a favor, "which would be much more difficult for your future career prospects." They gave me 45 minutes to decide. I read every word of their document. It was designed to strip me of everything: equity claims, IP rights, even the ability to work in the industry for 2 years. I looked up at Blake. He was barely suppressing a smirk. "I'll resign," I said quietly. His shoulders relaxed. I could see the relief. Difficult woman handled. Problem solved. But I need to draft my own resignation letter. Your document has some clauses my lawyer would need to review. Blake waved dismissively. Fine. Send it to David by end of day. I stood, gathered my things, and walked out. None of them shook my hand. I didn't go back to my office. I drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away, opened my laptop, and drafted a single-paragraph resignation letter. Effective immediately, I resigned from my position as Chief Security Architect at TechCorp, contingent upon full payment of all compensation owed under my employment agreement dated September 2008, including but not limited to base salary through resignation date, accrued equity per original operating agreement section 4.7, and intellectual property attribution rights per contract addendum signed June 2011. I will cooperate with transition activities upon confirmation of compensation terms. I sent it to David at 2:47 p.m. He replied at 3:12 p.m. Received. This satisfies resignation requirement. HR will process final paycheck. They didn't read it. They saw I resign and stopped. They were so eager to be rid of the difficult woman that they didn't do their due diligence. 17 years of being underestimated was about to become their most expensive mistake. Then I activated protocols I'd built into our systems years ago. Not sabotage, nothing illegal. Just security measures any competent architect would implement. Measures I documented thoroughly, that they'd approved without reading, because they never really listen when I explain technical details. Every critical legacy system required authentication renewal every 7 days. That renewal required my biometric signature and security clearance, both of which terminated automatically upon my departure. The new CTO didn't know these systems existed. Blake had never asked. In 17 years, none of them had truly understood what I built. I'd also embedded audit trails that automatically flagged any attempt to access core systems without proper authorization. Those flags triggered compliance reviews, which I'd routed to an external law firm years ago as part of our SOC 2 certification. At 4:30 p.m., security escorted me out. I carried my personal laptop and a leather bag containing 17 years of documentation. Contracts, emails, operating agreements, equity schedules, IP contribution records. Blake watched from his office window as I walked to my car. I looked up, met his eyes, and smiled. He didn't smile back. The timer was already counting down. Day 3, Monday morning. The VPN authentication system started rejecting credentials randomly. The new CTO's team spent 6 hours troubleshooting before calling it a minor glitch. Day 5, Wednesday. The primary database authentication system failed during peak hours. Clients couldn't access their dashboards. Support tickets exploded. The glitch wasn't minor anymore. Day 7, Friday, 4:47 a.m. My phone rang. Blake's name on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Maria. His voice was shaking. We need your help. The systems, everything's failing. Authentication, encryption, access controls, it's all locked. I stayed silent. Let him fill the space. Maria, please. We have clients threatening to leave. We're losing millions. I know you understand these systems. What exactly is failing? I asked calmly. Everything you built. The new team can't access the legacy infrastructure. They're saying it requires some kind of biometric renewal? Your clearance codes. Interesting. Maria, I know we didn't part on the best terms, but Blake, my resignation was conditional. Did David explain the terms? Silence. What terms? The compensation terms listed in my resignation letter, which David confirmed satisfied the separation requirement. More silence. I could hear papers shuffling. Then, oh God, you should probably call your corporate counsel, I said. It's early, but I think this qualifies as an emergency. I hung up. At 6:23 a.m., David Porter called. Maria, we need to discuss your departure terms. There seems to be some confusion about. No confusion. My resignation was contingent on full payment of compensation owed. You accepted those terms in writing, which means until that payment is confirmed, I'm technically still employed, with all associated systems access automatically terminated for security purposes. His breathing changed. How much are we talking about? You should review my original operating agreement. Section 4.7. Equity vesting schedule. The line went dead. By noon, I'd received 14 calls from TechCorp numbers. I didn't answer. At 2 p.m., David sent an email requesting an urgent meeting to discuss transition terms. I replied, "Happy to meet. My attorney will attend. Her rate is $850 per hour, billed to TechCorp per my employment contract's legal fee provision." Monday morning, we met at my attorney's office. Blake looked like he hadn't slept. Jennifer was pale. David kept adjusting his tie. My attorney, Sarah Chan, a partner at San Francisco's most aggressive employment litigation firm, laid out the situation with surgical precision. My client's equity agreement from 2008 grants her 7.2% of company ownership, vesting over 15 years. That vesting completed in 2023. Current company valuation, per your most recent investor deck, is $198 million. Ms. Houston's equity is therefore worth approximately $14.3 million. Blake's face went gray. Additionally, Sarah continued, her termination without documented cause triggers a poison pill clause in the original operating agreement. Mandatory buyout at full valuation within 60 days. We didn't terminate her, David protested. She resigned. Conditionally, which you accepted, creating a binding agreement. That resignation remains in effect only upon payment of owed compensation. Jennifer finally spoke. We don't have $14 million in liquid assets. Then you'll need to secure financing. You have 53 days remaining. Blake looked at me directly for the first time. Maria, please. We can work something out. This will destroy the company. You should have thought about that before offering me $140,000 for 17 years. Before interrupting me in every meeting. Before reorganizing my team without consultation. Before making me the most expensive woman to get rid of. His face flushed. That's not, we never. Save it, Blake. The meeting lasted 4 hours. By the end we had terms. $14.3 million payment over 18 months. Retained equity rights. Full intellectual property attribution on all systems I designed. Public acknowledgement of contributions. $500,000 additional settlement for constructive dismissal and gender discrimination claims. They had no choice. The alternative was federal securities fraud charges. They'd hidden equity obligations from investors before the planned IPO. Plus a very public gender discrimination lawsuit that would destroy their reputation in an industry already under scrutiny. 2 weeks later, Blake Morrison resigned to pursue other opportunities. The CFO followed. 3 board members were removed. The IPO was canceled. Company valuation dropped 67% overnight. I launched Founders Shield Consulting, helping women and underestimated workers in tech protect themselves from exactly what almost happened to me. Last month, I was invited to speak at Stanford's Engineering Ethics program, Blake's alma mater. I accepted. They wanted me gone. They got their wish. But they learned the hard way. You don't erase the woman who built the foundation without bringing down the entire building. And you definitely don't underestimate her twice. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Beyond the Scripted.